right? Now he just gets hit in the face.
On the river. I heard about it.
You heard about it?
Yeah, and I seen people gather around.
He was, not only did he hear about it, he was intimately involved in it.
Yeah, calling each other names, but that's, I've seen that all day.
When you're making up stories and you're making up facts, it's definitely not good for you. We know he's the guy that stabbed him. And he's acting like, no, I was over here and I heard some people, but, I don't know anything. Who, me? What? What, are you going to believe me or that video that you got?
As to count one of the information, Isaac Schumann, the jury finds Nikolai Mew.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your very own personal, you know who you are, your very own personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer. And I'm here today with my content genius that you know as Michael Rivers. Today we're reacting to the Apple River stabbing that happened in Apple River, Wisconsin. Everything happens in Wisconsin. It seems like we're doing a lot of cases in Wisconsin. But before we get to that, a couple of items of business. First of all, Keith from Connecticut, look at these. He gave us these, and this is just a koozie, I guess. It says Bruce Rivers, or just Bruce, criminal lawyer, and Michael, content genius. I mean, isn't that sweet? Not that I really want to solicit gifts, but when we have you guys appreciate us, it's just another way to interact with fans, and whether it's Amy or Keith or any of you guys who have given us gifts. Our fan club in Ireland, we'll give you a shout out. In fact, these are from Weir and Sons. You know who those guys are. Just want to give you guys a shout out because we do this for you guys. This is a labor of love between a father and son, because this is a father and son project. It's a way for us to do something almost every day together. And when we get a little this is like recognition. This is positive reinforcement, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate just the little gestures you guys make towards us. So appreciate that very much. Okay, before we get to that, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. This Apple River situation is not new to me. I mean, Grandma was on the river not that long ago, and she was in a very similar situation. Except she was selling meth on the riverbed. And, when Grandma does that, you really have to take control of her finances. You got to, because she gets taken into custody. And so we had to get power of attorney. And what do we use for that? eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid the high-priced lawyer for a legal form that you need that'll keep you out of court. Why will it keep you out of court? Because you got evidence of what the agreement is. So whether it's power of attorney or a bill of sale or a business agreement or a rental agreement, anything that you need to solidify a legitimate agreement, go to eForms.com. My grandma used it, and, now she's out, and getting rehab. Grandma. Anyway, so let's get into this. So this guy by the name of Nikolai Mew, he's from actually Minnesota. He's from New Prague, Minnesota. He goes to the Apple River. Now, the Apple River is a kind of a deal where they drop you off upriver with an inner tube, and you hop in the inner tube, and you float down the the river, the Apple River, and you drink, and you drink, and you drink, and it's kind of rowdy, and something always bad happens there, it seems like. People are dying, at least a couple a year. So Nikolai was there, and he was drunk, and somebody lost their cell phone, whether it was his wife or whoever it was. So he starts out, with a mask and a snorkel, like looking for it, and he's around these people. I don't think he asked them, have you guys seen a cell phone around here? I need to look for a cell phone. He's just he's quiet, actually. And so these people start making fun of him. One of them calls him a raper. They say that he's looking for young girls, and he's going to rape young girls or something like that. And then a crowd of people starts attacking him, verbally and physically. He had a knife with him. It's unclear as to why he had the knife. I think it's maybe because they tied the tubes together, and I'm not sure exactly why he had the knife. But if they tie the tubes together, they need a knife to untie him, I guess. But in any event, he stabs 5 people. One person is critically injured and lost her life. Another one, a young girl, gets disemboweled and has to have, you'll see her scar in a minute. She had to have surgery to put her stomach back into place. But they're drunk too. You know, I never have a case that ends in violence that started out with weed. Never. Because guess what? The only thing you really give a shit about after you had a bunch of weed is maybe probably getting something to eat. But with alcohol, whether it's domestic violence or whatever, but there was video of this incident, and now he's on the fucking hook for murder 1, intentional, reckless homicide, and a bunch of other degrees, 21 counts in all. And his trial's over, and the verdict is or the jury is out. Now, I'll get to some things about the jury, but let's take a look right now at the actual footage from the event itself.
What is he on? Whoa! Whoa! Away! Oh God! We up! What are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about?
Now, when kids get together and they get a little mob-like mentality, you know, they can get unruly. And that seems like what's going on here a little bit. I don't know why he's not talking to them, because he's probably just drunk and is what it is. But he's not telling them what he's trying to do.
Get away from us! What? What are you doing? What's going on with y'all homie? He's on camera. Guys, let's tripping. He's on 4K. Yo, the new iPhone got that good quality. What do you say?
So one of the things they do is you go down the Apple River, you have usually a tube that's, and I don't do this shit because this is not my scene, but they put a bunch of beer into a cooler, and that has its own inner tube, and so it's a good time, and it is what it is.
Yeah, what the hell? Who is this? Yes. For the culture. Who is that? For the culture. Who is that?
Now, they're really ramping this up, and he's not doing anything. I mean, it's suspicious that I see it. So there's no reason for them. I mean, you know how kids can get, right? Young teenagers or older teenagers, especially.
Who the hell is this? Go. It doesn't matter. He said he was looking for little girls. You're looking for little girls? Yeah. That's exactly what he said. Weird us out. I didn't have that part on camera, did I?
He's not even doing anything. I don't know what they're so upset about. And now keep in mind, I don't know what the context is before the video, but he's looking for a cell phone.
Young ass kid. What the hell is this guy's problem, bro? We're trying to have fun.
See, he waves over to his people, because and that's going to be an issue later on.
He's gonna claim me. We don't want this one.
So, the first strike, it appears to me that it comes from the group. Because he's not messing with the group. The girl slaps him or does what she does, and it doesn't look like he's being aggressive with them at all. That's important, because if you provoke the fight, you can't claim self-defense. And you'll see later on, it's the allegation that he punched the girl in the face, and that's why they threw him on the ground. But you don't really see that here. All right, now he just gets hit in the face. When you're on the ground in the water, that's arguably a different scenario than if you're just on the ground on land. You're drunk, and now they're pushing you around. I think he comes up here with the knife. Yeah, he's got the knife in his hand at this point.
What the fuck is that?
See how fast that happened? That's also something that should be taken into consideration when the jury decides whether this was self-defense or not. This isn't something like he takes his time, he picks out his victim, and he stabs his victim. It is a chaotic scene, and it happens like that. So let's just rewind it a little bit and take a look at the end. He's got, now, if you look at, zoom in there at 2 minutes, he's got that knife in his hand. He's not using it yet, it doesn't appear. But he's got the knife in his hand at 2 minutes into the video. Now, why these guys are continuing to screw with him when he's got a knife in his hand, maybe they don't even see it because it is chaotic.
What the fuck? What the fuck? He's dying! He's dying, bro! What? Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
So you see how fast that happened? I mean, it was just seconds. I mean, this is not like he's just running around stabbing people. He was being attacked, and it happened within seconds.
Are you serious? Is this real? Oh my god! Who is that? Oh my god! Oh my god! Is this real? Oh my god! Oh my god, what the fuck? Is this real? Wait! That's not Bark! That's not Bark! That's not Bark! Bark! That's not Isaac! Oh my god! This isn't real! This isn't real!
All right. So the whole thing, that whole video is 3 minutes and 25 seconds long. The stabbing is just a seconds, really small part of it. The bullying, the beating, whatever you want to call it, them attacking him is longer than the stabbing. If he's the provocateur, he can't avail himself of self-defense. And it's clear that the judge in this case has allowed the self-defense claim to go on. Here's what happens. When you claim self-defense, normally the burden is on the prosecutor to prove their case, right? And when you claim self-defense, it's up to the defense to prove that there's some evidence of self-defense. Okay? So, and it has to meet certain elements. You can't just get self-defense. So you have to prove that there's some plausible theory of self-defense. And it can't be the provocateur. You can't, and everything has to be reasonable. So, but it's a very low burden it's called a burden of production, is really what it's called. And so it's up to the defense to prove that by just a small amount. Then once you get that defense, it is up to the state to prove that that it wasn't self-defense. Let me just read to you what the law is in Wisconsin. Self-defense is an issue in this case. The law of self-defense allows the defendant to threaten or intentionally use force against another only if the defendant believed there was an actual or imminent unlawful interference with the defendant's person. And when you're dealing with deadly force, it has to be threat of death or great bodily harm. And the defendant believed that the amount of force the defendant used or threatened was necessary to prevent or terminate the interference, and the defendant's belief was reasonable. A belief may be reasonable even though mistaken. In determining whether the defendant's belief was reasonable, the standard is what a person of ordinary intelligence and prudence would have believed in the defendant's position under the circumstances that existed at the time of the alleged offense. The reasonableness of the defendant's belief must be determined from the standpoint of the defendant at the time the defendant's acts and not from the viewpoint of the jury now. In other words, you got to see the situation as it was unfolding, not in hindsight. And so think about if you're getting attacked by 13 people and what that means. So we're going to analyze, let's just take a look at some of the testimony from some of the victims. So Riley Madison testified, and she was stabbed in the stomach.
And were you about the same in July of 2022?
Maybe 115.
Were you tubing on the river that day with friends?
I was.
And were you drinking alcohol?
I was.
Using any other substances?
I was smoking marijuana.
The testimony is that everybody was smoking weed and drinking.
And do you believe you were intoxicated?
I do, yes.
Was that your first time tubing on the river?
I've been on the river before, but I've started at different points with friends, so I've never really been on that part of the river.
Okay.
Incidentally, you'll never catch me on the Apple River.
What do you remember at some point along the river that something catching your group's attention?
Not specifically mine. I was just kind of hanging out with my friends on the tube, and we had stopped, and so I kind of asked why we were stopping. And I heard somebody mention something about a group looking uncomfortable. I hadn't got off right away, so.
Did you walk over after some other folks?
I did. I kind of was like, what's going on? And then I had told Janelle, like, let's kind of go over there and see what's going on.
Now, to her point, you wouldn't really expect to see somebody on the river with a knife. I mean, that's not, or any kind of weapon, really. Because what are you doing on the river? You're just kind of, you got your sandals on because it's a rocky bottom, and you got your swimsuit on, and you got your beer in your hand, and you're laying in a tube. That's what you're doing. And it looks like they were kind of at the end of the river, I think, my guess. But you wouldn't expect somebody to have a knife.
And what do you remember everything sequentially perfectly, or is it
It's very choppy for me.
Okay. So what do you remember next?
I remember getting off the tube, walking up to Mr. Miu, and I just remember Maddie being there and yelling at him. I remember her being punched in the face, and then I remember being stabbed, and that is completely it.
So you don't remember, did you see or don't you remember anyone else stabbed?
No.
And do you know if it's because you don't remember, or you didn't see, or?
I think I was just focused on myself, doing what I was doing. I was not really paying attention to anybody else at all.
And when you saw Madison get punched, can you explain that in as much details as you remember?
I barely really remember that part. I just remember him staring at us and then not saying anything and punching her, and I was just like shocked, like, oh my God.
Now, what's the best evidence? Her recollection fueled by marijuana and alcohol, or the video? The videos, although the video isn't all that clear either.
And that, right after that, I literally remember being stabbed, and that's it, so.
With him punching her, do you remember any more details than that? Like what hand he used
No.
or how the
Not at
punch
all.
was?
Not at all.
And what else do you remember about you getting stabbed?
I just remember seeing Nick's face very blank and not lunging at me, but just kind of poking me, and I held my side and I was like, ow, like, Janelle, I think he punched me. That really hurt, like, and I looked down and I was bleeding out and holding my stomach, and it just, like, didn't feel real. Like, it was just a lot of shock, and from there.
Sometimes when you get an injury like that, you almost don't even feel it. And you don't comprehend it because I don't think she's ever been stabbed before. But one of the things that happened with her is that her stomach was coming out of the injury.
From there, I was walking around the river asking for help, like just asking somebody to help me. I told Q that I felt like I was dying because I just was losing, like I was losing so much blood, and every time I'd walk, I just felt like I was getting weaker and weaker. So another group.
And I don't think there's any evidence that she herself was a threat physically. I mean, I think she's coming over to investigate what's going on. And if she's in this melee, she's an innocent bystander.
Group down the river had put me on a tube and kind of pushed me down to kind of get away from the scene. And then they were holding my side and just kind of keeping me awake. And then when the cops had showed up, they took me off of the tube and put me on the ground. And I just remember, like, Janelle coming over, you know, asking me to stay awake, and the cops trying to ask me what my name was, and then just being put in the ambulance and going to the hospital.
All right, can we have the screen? And for the record, this is 79. And Riley, what are we seeing in this photo?
That is, the bigger one is the stab wound, and the little one is from a chest tube.
And how about in this one?
This is the one where they had to cut me open to get my stomach put back in.
And so, like,
the first wound that you see that on the side there, that's her stab wound. And then the second wound, this is not from the stabbing. This one on her stomach is actually a surgical scar. But look what they had to do. I mean, they had to really cut her open in order to get her stomach to where it needed to be. She could have died easily.
here where the mouse is, that's from surgery.
That's all from surgery and then the staples.
And then on over here,
Yep.
what's that?
The incision wound?
This stitch is right here. Is that the stab wound?
Yep, that's the stab wound.
The one we looked at?
Prior, yep.
Okay. Oh, and are you, in the photo, are you taking this in a mirror?
Yes,
So which side is the wound actually on?
on my left side.
So it's reversed in this photo?
Yes.
You can turn off the screen.
So one of the things that happens in cases that involve alcohol and chaos is that people don't remember things, accurately, and sometimes people at the time of the event, they exaggerate, and there's all and so eyewitness testimony is not always the most reliable piece of evidence. Let's hear what this guy has to say.
Now, and you had described, at least in your interview with the police, that you were really kind of paying attention to what was going on.
Yes.
Okay. In your statement in March of 2024, you say, tell me if you remember this. I remember he had a hat on. He had on. Like, he looked like he wasn't supposed to be in the water. Like he just came out of, the bushes. He just came out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So is it your testimony today, under oath, that the person involved in this incident had a hat on and came out of the bushes?
No.
You told the police
I
that.
told them that, yes, but I don't, like you said, it could be foggy. I don't think that's what it was.
So this is important because if a witness is recalling something different than a prior statement, it calls into question their credibility. But that's really not at issue here. There's only one issue. In fact, that's how a lot of cases break down. Most cases break down to just one or two issues. And what's the issue here? The issue is whether what the Mr. Mew did was reasonable, right? I mean, he's getting the self-defense instruction. It just comes down, was his perception of death or great bodily harm reasonable, and was his use of force reasonable to prevent it?
Yes.
Okay. And were you intentionally lying to the police?
No.
Okay. So where do you come up with the idea that he came out of the bushes?
Because that's why I saw him running to the bushes after the incident.
Okay.
I mean, he's clearly not wearing a hat. He's clearly not coming out of the bushes. So this cross-examination, while it feels good to the defense lawyer, because you're catching somebody in a lie that's testifying against your client, and not a lie, but, something that isn't true, who gives a shit, in a sense? So one of the things that happens, especially in these kinds of cases, the cops are on the scene. And everybody's pointing to Nikolai, saying, he's the guy, he's the guy, he's the guy. So they bring him into custody, they put him in the back of their squad, and they start talking to him. Now he's on the stand. Defendants don't have to testify. You have the absolute right to remain silent. And generally speaking, if you can, you keep your client off the stand. However, if you need to clean some shit up, which they needed to do here, then you have your client testify. But let's take a look and see what he's going to testify to.
Where are you starting from?
Still doing all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going
Temperature? Temperature's okay in here?
on? Yeah.
Okay.
I hear somebody got stabbed, and I fit the description.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Yep. So we're working through that now. Did you see that fight on the river?
I heard about it.
You heard about it?
Yeah, and I seen people gather around.
Not only did he hear about it, he was intimately involved in it. This is what what is this? Self-snitching? He doesn't have to give a statement here. In fact, he'd be better off, not. Just he can invoke his right to remain silent.
People gather around it.
Okay. All right.
And I went over to talk to see if somebody saw anything, but that's about it.
Okay.
Our whole group was pretty interested in finding out what happened.
Okay. And that's your whole group over?
So he's sort of acting like, I was just a bystander. I didn't see shit. And we know that's not true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. Okay, well.
Did you see anybody injured?
No.
You didn't see anybody injured?
No.
Did you see anybody fighting?
I heard people screaming at each other, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Screaming in anger or screaming in pain, do you know?
Everybody's drunk, so I don't know. I can't tell the difference, but I would say, I don't know, just screaming.
Okay.
Calling each other names, but, that's, I've seen that all day.
We know he's the guy that fucking stabbed him. And he's acting like, no, I was over here and I heard some people, but, I don't know anything. Who, me? What? What, are you going to believe me or that video that you got? He doesn't know there's a video.
And we've all been drinking a lot. I'm sure they're drunk. I'm sure they're doing, I don't know, kids being kids.
Kids being kids. Where's your
Problem that he's got here is he's not saying I was in fear for my life. And so these clearly false statements can be used against him and will be used against him by the jury.
group from?
44-9.
Where did you drive from today?
Oh, I drove from Prior Lake.
From Prior Lake.
Actually,
Okay.
we didn't drive with them. We came here
breaking
alone.
down here. We'll take care
Your
of it.
wife and you?
Yeah.
And you met the group here?
Yeah, but we know each other.
Okay. All right. As long as the temperature's good, I'll check back with you in a minute, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is the statement, the brief statement that he gave at the scene. Now let's take a look at how he testifies and explains what he says to the what he says to the cops.
When you were talking to Lieutenant Hart, you,
Over here at the jail,
yeah,
I don't remember any of that conversation.
you don't recall pretending to not be aware that someone had died.
Objection assumes a fact.
Sustained.
So that question that he just asked, when you don't remember pretending, blah, blah, assumes those facts are true. That's basically the prosecutor testifying, and there's no facts and evidence. So that's what the objection was: assumes facts and not in evidence, and that was sustained. So he she's going to withdraw that question and ask something else.
When you're talking to Lieutenant Hart, that was about 4 hours after you had been arrested, right?
Yeah, that's what I learned.
And then you had time to put together a story, right?
No.
And he really doesn't have to put together a story. You hear the tenor of the prosecutor's questions, pretending, that you didn't know, putting together a story. He doesn't really have to. I mean, the case is what it is, and thank God it's on video for both sides.
You had 4 hours to come up with a story about what happened on the river before you were interviewed by Lieutenant Hart, right?
No,
You didn't have that time.
I didn't put a story together.
Okay. So when you told her things like, 2 of these boys pulled knives on me, you're telling the truth?
No.
That was a story, right?
Correct.
And when you said that you somehow managed to grab one of the boys' arms and bend their wrist back and stab them with their own knife, that's a story you made up, right?
I told her what I remembered.
You remember doing that?
No, everything I told her is what I remembered at that time.
At the time you told her these things, you thought that you would grab someone's arm and stab them with their own knife?
As you can see, I was very confused.
Did you not testify earlier?
Why were you confused? Because you're drunk? Or you're confused because it's convenient and that's a better story? And it just seems like he makes it up out of whole cloth. Nobody else had a knife.
Earlier that you lied about the knife?
That I did.
And then nobody.
And here's the thing. You got eyewitnesses that, their memory isn't perfect. In fact, it's faulty. You got his memory that is either faulty or untrue, purposefully untrue. So the jury has asked asked a question of the judge. A lot of times when the jury is in deliberation, they can ask a question. Can we have lunch, or can we have a smoke break, or can we see a piece of the testimony over? Which usually is no, but can we see a piece of evidence? And the evidence here they wanted to see is the video. They wanted to see the video again. Now what happens? In Minnesota, now they have devices in the deliberation room so they can play it themselves as much as they want. But in Wisconsin, they don't do that yet. So they want to see it. They got to come back into court and they have to review it in court. And they can't deliberate while they're in court because they're deliberating in front of the parties. They have to go take that back into their deliberations, back into the jury room and go from there. But they wanted to see the video again. So they're kind of discounting what the witnesses are saying. Let's see what the actual footage is.
Nobody else had a knife on the river except for you.
That I lied about the knife.
So it's impossible then for you to have twisted someone's arm and stabbed them with their own knife, right?
I saw the video.
No, I'm asking what you said to Lieutenant Hart.
I don't remember the interview, but I saw the video. And
You're aware,
I know that it's not right. It's not true.
not just a couple of little lies, but lie on top of lie to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Argumentative. Sustained.
Well, let's talk about some of the things you told her. You said, these boys took the goggles off my head and threw them down the river, right? You told her that?
If that's what the video recorded, yes.
All right, you told her that these boys tried to pull down your shorts, right?
That's what I saw in the video, but I don't remember the interview.
That's a detail you added for your benefit, right?
No.
You said these,
So when you're making up stories and you're making up facts, it's definitely not good for you. But this is why the defense had to call him, because he's got to explain a couple things. Number one, he's got to explain why he fucking lied to the cops. And number two, he's got to explain what he felt, because none of that is in his statement to the cops. He didn't, because he's acting like he didn't do it. He has to say that I felt like I was in fear of great bodily harm or death. Now let's take a look and see, one of the things, whenever you have a trial, you have the openings and closings, opening statements of both parties. You have the direct and cross-examination of the state's witnesses, the direct and cross-examination of the defense witnesses. Then you have the closing argument, the summations. Now the summations, in your opening statement, you can't make arguments. You just tell them what the evidence is going to show. That's why they're a lot shorter. But in the closing arguments, you get the theory of the case. You get, this is why you should find him guilty. Here's the evidence. This is what the evidence showed. That kind of thing. So let's take a look at, we're going to look at the prosecution's closing argument and then the state's. Then I'm going to tell you the verdict here afterwards, which you probably already know. But we'll tell you in a second.
Of him. The video doesn't fade with time. It's not biased, not influenced by alcohol. As I told you in the beginning of this case, the violent episode from the video is about 25 seconds, from the point he punches Madison until you see him walking off after stabbing 5 people. Nikolai is not seen in that video for 8 to 9 seconds until the point you see him walking away. You don't see him stab Dante. Some of you may have wondered why we called Marion Davis. Certainly it wasn't for his eyewitness testimony, but he took a video. He took a video that captured a different angle than Juwan's video. It's grainy, it's difficult to see, but you can see enough. And it shows Nikolai seeking Dante out and stabbing him when his group is in the opposite direction. Nikolai walks into a crowd of people, stabs Dante.
Now, keep in mind, you have a duty to retreat where reasonable to do so. So if you're walking into a group of people, I don't know that I necessarily see him hit the woman, like the prosecutor said. But if you do that, and if the jury buys that he did that, then guess what? You provoked the attack. You can't use self-defense. You're screwed. But I don't think he meant to kill anybody. I really don't.
Before I show you that video again, I need to provide some context from Juwan's video.
Take it off.
Ostensibly, that's the family members of the victim who died. And, this stuff is hard to watch, and then all of a sudden, when they have sentencing, if there is sentencing, you got victim impact statements, and those are powerful and tough from a defense standpoint to watch. And how many times do you think this family has seen the fucking video? I mean, how many times? Over and over and over again. And you don't get numb to it because it's like that's the last moment of their life.
So here at 2 minutes and 6 seconds, this is after Nikolai has stabbed the 4 people that you do see parts of on the video. He's standing next to Ariel. Ariel's there. Nikolai's not by himself. 2 minutes, 8 seconds, that's the last you'll see of Nikolai until you see him walking off in this video. You see Dante, or AJ, the boys running back to their tubes, and you see Larian filming in the background. Larian captured what Nikolai was doing at this point, even though this video didn't. And here,
Basically, the prosecution goes through this, and he tries to say it's not a mistake. He didn't retreat like he was supposed to, and it would have been reasonable for him to retreat. And the amount of force that he used was more than necessary to repel any kind of attack that was perceived or ill-perceived. And he can't avail himself of self-defense because he provoked the attack. So that's kind of what the prosecutor's argument is in a nutshell. Let's take a look and see what the defense argument is. So now let's look at the defense theory of the case. You know, this is where a lawyer really makes his bones. You know, this is where all your training comes in, all your work for the case comes in. Now it's time to, earn your money.
Everything here I just told you is what we know.
I fucking hate it when people write shit on a board like that. You have a camera that's equipped, or a courtroom that's equipped with technology. Why not put it in a PowerPoint and look really, why? Because it looks unprofessional, it looks lazy, doesn't look put together. And I don't think you should overuse a PowerPoint, but writing stuff on a board like this, I don't think is all that effective.
In the first minute and 49 seconds. And why does that matter?
That's just a stylistic thing, that's what I'm saying.
Judge, I can't see the exhibits and I'm doing rebuttals.
And step up and move over to the side.
What does that matter? Why does this matter? Because one of the things you have to consider when you consider self-defense is Nick Mew's reasonable belief that there is going to be an imminent interference with his person. And when you add...
Doesn't that seem odd? That's the language in the instruction. An imminent, unlawful interference with the defendant's person. What the fuck does that mean? This is what lawyers do. This is how lawyers write shit. It's just kind of stupid. But what it really means is you think you're going to get hit. Or you think you're going to be assaulted.
All of these things together. He has to subjectively believe that. As a jury, as you sit here today, we don't get to look at it and say, what would an objective, reasonable person do? Does Nick feel that way? Does Nick feel, with all of these things listed here, that there is an imminent unlawful interference with his person? And I would submit to you, he does.
And I think you can honestly believe that he does feel that way. There's no question about that. Now, they've seen this video multiple times throughout the trial. But the other thing is, during their deliberations, they asked to see it again. That's the best piece of evidence that they had. So they got the case yesterday afternoon. They came back today before lunch.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away! Oh God! We up! We up! What are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about? What? Get away from us! What? What's going on with y'all homie?
It is really odd that he's not telling them what's going on.
The second part of the video that I think is important, and Attorney Anderson's talked a little bit about it, is really the 1 second that we don't get to see, right? The 1 second where the state is insinuating and is claiming that Madison Cohen was punched, and where Nick Mew has testified that he raises his arm to get her out of his space. So those are the two possibilities as to what happened in the video that you don't see. And I am, once again, asking that you use your everyday experiences in life when you make this determination. Okay?
So, yeah.
So the verdict is in, and he was found guilty on just about everything. We'll watch the verdict here in a second. But keep in mind, you got 5 victims here, 1 fatality, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what he could potentially be looking at here after the reading of the verdict.
As to count 1 of the information, Isaac Schumann, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree reckless homicide as submitted. Question, did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 2 of the information, Alexander Martin, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 3 of the information, Dante Carlson, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 4 of the information, Anthony Carlson, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 5 of the information, Riley Madison, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 6 of the information, Madison Cohen, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of battery as charged. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. Members of the jury, I do have to verify that this is in fact a unanimous verdict.
So when you look at the first-degree reckless homicide, it basically means you recklessly causing the death of another without regard for human life, essentially, with a blind indifference, in other words. Meaning you don't really give a shit. You know, you're not giving anybody any consideration, and that you're acting without, any kind of regard for human life. That is what first-degree reckless homicide is. Now, the guidelines, he can get up to 60 years on a case like this. So, and the recklessly endangering safety, is like 12 and a half years. So if you add all this up, now he's not going to probably get the maximum on all of these because the judge will probably give him some kind of, 10 years in, 10 years out, or 20 years in, 20 years out. In other words, 20 years in prison. And, here's the deal. In Wisconsin, your time is your time. You do the time. If you get 10 years in, you're going to do 10 years. So, when you have multiple victims like this, one of the things the court likes to do is account for each victim in a sentence. And if you give concurrent sentences, you're not doing that. So it's quite likely that he'll get consecutive sentence, which in all honesty will ultimately wind up being a life sentence for him. He was convicted of 4 counts of recklessly endangering the safety of others. So we don't know exactly what the guideline calculation is going to come out to be because, we just don't know what his criminal history is. And there's a whole lot of factors that go into it. But that judge very well could sentence all these consecutively. And a lot of times in these homicides, they do. So if he does that, that's essentially a life sentence. It's not pronounced as a life sentence, but it essentially is. So that's been our reaction to Nikolai Mew's trial at the Apple River in Wisconsin. I don't recommend you go there. Not a fan. I know a lot of people who have gone there and they think it's just a blast. That ain't my scene. My scene's like an Irish pub. That's what I like. Anyway, But just remember, when you guys go out and do something like this, watch your consumption. And if somebody's being crazy or if they have a weapon, stay the fuck away from them. Because if somebody, with all the drinking that goes on in the Apple River or places like this, a concert or whatever, you see some danger, stay away from the danger. Don't confront the danger. You want to live to see another day. So that's been our little reaction to Mr. Mew's conviction. We'll see you next time here at Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon, and if you're a Patreon member, get us your address, and we will and just send it to us in a message on Patreon, and we will get a hat out to every single one of our Patreon members right here. Or Stop Self Snitching at. See you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away.
23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God.